I'm looking at a business card I haven't touched in 15 years. Detective Margaret Rousseau, it reads. Toronto Police Service. My father slipped it into my coat pocket the day before he died, his hands shaking as he whispered, "If you ever need someone who won't back down, call her. She owes me one." I never thought I'd need it. I especially never thought I'd need it because of my own wife. But here I am, sitting in a Tim Hortons parking lot in Mississauga at 11 p.m. on a Thursday, my 12-year-old son Oliver trembling in the passenger seat beside me, watching our house burn. Let me back up. My name is Thomas Whitmore. I'm 63 years old, recently retired from a 30-year career as a structural safety engineer with the Ontario Ministry of Infrastructure. I designed fail-safe systems for public buildings, schools, hospitals, government facilities. I made sure that when something went wrong, people could get out alive. The irony isn't lost on me. I met Catherine 22 years ago at a professional conference in Ottawa. She was 31, I was 41, and she was the most captivating woman I'd ever met. Smart, ambitious, working her way up in pharmaceutical sales. We married within a year. Oliver came along 2 years later, and for a while, everything felt perfect. But perfection has a way of corroding when you're not paying attention. Catherine wanted more attention, more time, more of everything I couldn't give while I was consumed with my work. Bridge inspections, building code updates, emergency safety reviews. I lived for the work. I told myself I was providing for my family, building a future for Oliver. What I was really doing was building a wall between myself and the people who needed me most. 3 months ago, Catherine announced she had a business opportunity in Vancouver, a week-long training seminar for a new product line. She seemed excited, more animated than I'd seen her in years. I should have wondered why. Instead, I just kissed her goodbye and drove her to Pearson Airport. "Take care of Oliver," she said at departures. No kiss for him. He'd stayed in the car. At the time, I thought she was just in a hurry. Now I know better. That was a Tuesday morning in early September. By Tuesday evening, Oliver was acting strange, quiet, kept looking at me like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Wednesday, he barely touched his dinner. Thursday, he failed a math test he should have aced. Friday afternoon, I got the call from Catherine. She'd be staying an extra few days. Networking opportunity. Her voice sounded off too bright, too cheerful. In the background, I heard a man laugh. "Who's that?" I asked. "Just colleagues, honey. I'll call you tomorrow. Love you." She hung up before I could respond. That night, Oliver came into my study. I was reviewing retirement investment statements, trying to figure out our financial future now that I was no longer working full-time. He stood in the doorway, small for his 12 years, his hands clenched into fists. "Dad," he said, "I need to tell you something about Mom." I looked up from my papers. "What is it, buddy?" He took a breath. I heard her before she left. On the phone in the garage, I went out to get my hockey stick from the car, and she was talking to someone. She didn't know I was there. "Oliver, your mother was probably just," she said, "once the house burns, it'll look like faulty wiring. He designed safety systems, but he never updated his own place. The insurance will pay out the full amount, and we'll be set." The room went very cold. "Son, are you sure that's what you heard?" "I'm sure, Dad." And she said something else. His voice cracked. She said, "Don't worry about the kid. He'll be with Tom. They'll both be asleep when it happens." My hands started shaking. "When did you hear this?" "Monday night. The night before she left. 4 days ago. 4 days my son had been carrying this terror alone." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because," tears spilled down his cheeks, "because I tried to tell you stuff before. About how Mom gets mean when you're not around. How she says things that scare me. And you always say I'm being dramatic or that I'm misunderstanding. So I thought maybe I was wrong about this too. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest." He was right. I had dismissed him. Too busy, too tired, too convinced that my wife was the responsible parent and I was just the absentee father trying to make up for lost time. "I believe you," I said. I pulled him into a hug. "I believe you, Oliver. And we're going to figure this out." "But Dad," he whispered against my shoulder, "she comes home tomorrow. What if it happens when we're asleep?" Catherine's flight was scheduled to land at 9 a.m. Saturday. She'd texted that she'd take an Uber home, should arrive by 11 a.m. That gave us less than 16 hours. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Oliver. We sat at the kitchen table, and I made us both hot chocolate, something I hadn't done since he was little. And I listened while he told me everything, the phone calls he'd overheard. Not just the one in the garage, but others over the past month. Always when I was out. Always in hushed tones. Always ending abruptly when Oliver appeared. The way Catherine had been pushing me to increase our home insurance. We're retired now, Tom. We need to protect our assets. I'd increased it to $1.8 million 3 weeks ago. Our mortgage was paid off. The payout would be substantial. The man she'd been texting. Oliver had seen the name. D. Morrison. Heart emojis. Late night messages. Did you see what the messages said? I asked. One time. It said, "Can't wait to start our new life together. Just a little longer, baby." I felt sick, but I also felt something else. Clarity. For the first time in months, maybe years, I was fully present. My son needed me, and I was going to protect him. I pulled out my laptop and started searching. D. Morrison, Ontario Pharmaceutical Sales. It took less than 5 minutes to find him. Derek Morrison, sales director at the same company where Catherine worked. 42 years old. Divorced. Living in a condo in downtown Toronto. I dug deeper. Social media photos showed him at company events. In several of them, I spotted Catherine in the background. In one from 6 months ago, they were standing close, her hand on his arm, both smiling. 6 months. This had been going on for at least 6 months. "Dad," Oliver said, watching me, "what are we going to do?" I thought about calling the police. But what would I tell them? My son overheard a conversation? I had no proof, no recordings, nothing but the word of a 12-year-old against his mother. Then I remembered the business card. I pulled it from my wallet. Detective Margaret Rousseau. My father had been a Crown prosecutor for 30 years before retiring. He'd worked with Rousseau on several cases. She was, in his words, relentless as a bloodhound and twice as smart. I called the number at 2 a.m. Expected voicemail. Instead, she answered on the third ring. Rousseau. "Detective, my name is Thomas Whitmore. You knew my father, Leonard Whitmore. He passed away 15 years ago, but he gave me your card and said—" "I remember Len," she said, her voice warm. "Good man. He helped me put away some very bad people." "What's going on, Thomas?" I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a long pause. "That's a serious accusation," she said finally. "But if your son heard what he says he heard, we need to take it seriously. Arson, with intent to commit murder, is a major crime. The problem is evidence. We need proof." "What kind of proof? Does your wife know you're aware of her plans?" "No." "Good. Keep it that way. Here's what I want you to do. Take your son somewhere safe tonight. Don't tell your wife where you're going. Tomorrow, when she comes home, I'll have plainclothes officers watching your house. If anyone approaches with intent to commit arson, we'll catch them in the act." "You'd do that? Based on what I've told you?" "Your father saved my career once," she said quietly. "Testified on my behalf when a suspect accused me of misconduct. He didn't have to, but he did. I owe him. And more importantly, if there's even a chance a child is in danger, I'm going to act." Relief washed over me. "Thank you. Get your son somewhere safe. I'll call you in the morning with the plan." I booked a room at the Holiday Inn near Square One Shopping Center in Mississauga. We left at 3 a.m., packing light. Oliver brought his backpack with his laptop and some clothes. I brought my phone, my laptop, and the files I'd pulled on Derek Morrison. In the hotel room, Oliver finally fell asleep around 5 a.m. I sat by the window, watching the sun rise over the city, and thought about my marriage. Had there been signs? Of course there had been. The distance, the coldness, the way Catherine had stopped asking about my day, stopped sharing hers. The separate bedrooms we'd adopted 2 years ago. "You snore," she'd said. But I'd never snored before. I'd told myself it was normal. Marriage after 20 years. People grow apart. We'd get through it. I'd been so stupid. My phone buzzed at 8:30 a.m. Detective Rousseau. "We're in position," she said. 2 unmarked cars on your street. Officers positioned with clear sight lines to your house. If anyone approaches, we'll see them. Catherine lands at 9 a.m., I said. She'll be home by 11. Good. Now, Thomas, this is important. I need you to stay away from the house. No matter what happens, you and Oliver stay put. Understood? Understood. At 9:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Catherine. Landed. So good to be home. See you soon. My stomach turned. How could she send a heart emoji while planning to murder her husband and son? At 10:30 a.m., another text. Uber's here. Be home in 20. Can't wait to see you both. I showed Oliver. He was awake now, sitting on the hotel bed, looking pale. She doesn't know, he said softly. She doesn't know we know, and that's our advantage, I said. At 11:15 a.m., my phone rang. Catherine. Hey, honey, she said, that too bright voice again. I'm home, but you're not here. Where are you? Think fast, Tom. We went to breakfast, I said. Oliver wanted McDonald's. We'll be home in half an hour. Oh, a pause. Okay, well, I'll just unpack. See you soon. She hung up. 5 minutes later, Detective Rousseau called. Your wife just went inside. She's alone. We're waiting. What if nothing happens? I asked. What if I got this all wrong? Then you got it wrong, she said. But better safe than sorry. Give it time. 11:30 came and went. Noon. 12:30. I was starting to think Oliver had misheard. That I'd made a terrible mistake. That I'd destroyed my marriage over a misunderstanding. Then, at 1:07 p.m., Rousseau called again. We've got movement, she said, her voice sharp. White van just pulled up 3 houses down. 2 males, early 40s. They're walking toward your property carrying duffel bags. Stay on the line. I put her on speaker. Oliver moved closer to me. We heard Rousseau speaking to her team. Let them get to the door. We need them to commit to the act. 30 seconds of silence. Then, they're at your side door. One's picking the lock, the other's pulling something out of the bag. Looks like containers. Probably accelerant. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. They're inside, Rousseau said. Moving through the house. Wait for it. Wait for it. Now. All units. Go. Even through the phone I heard shouting. Police! Drop it! Hands up! Get on the ground! Commotion. Yelling. A man's voice. We didn't do anything. We're just... Save it, Rousseau snapped. You're under arrest for attempted arson and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Rousseau came back on. We've got them, Thomas. 2 suspects in custody. They had 4 liters of gasoline and timing devices. Your house is secure. I couldn't speak. Beside me, Oliver burst into tears. Thank you, I managed finally. Thank you. We're not done yet, she said. Your wife just came out of the house. She's seeing the police vehicles. I'm watching her face right now. And Thomas? She's not surprised. She's angry. What do you mean? She's not shocked. She's furious. That tells me she knew this was coming. Stay where you are. We're bringing her in for questioning. An hour later, I got the call I'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. Your wife's in custody, Rousseau said. The 2 men we arrested, they gave her up immediately. Offered full cooperation in exchange for reduced sentences. Turns out your wife hired them through Derek Morrison. He found them through some less than legal contacts from his past. They were supposed to make it look like an electrical fire. Pour accelerant through the walls, set timers to ignite it at 3 a.m. By the time the fire department arrived, you and your son would be dead from smoke inhalation. I felt dizzy. And the insurance? That appears to be the motive. $1.8 million payout. Your wife planned to split it with Derek Morrison. They had tickets booked to Costa Rica for next month. New identities already arranged. But Oliver, our son, she was going to kill her own child? I asked her that, Rousseau said, her voice hard. Want to know what she said? She said, he would have been a complication in our new life. Derek doesn't want to raise someone else's kid. I thought I might vomit. Thomas, I need you to come to the station. Bring Oliver. We'll need statements from both of you. The next few hours were a blur. Police station, statements. A victim services counselor who spoke gently to Oliver while I gave my account. Child Protective Services showed up to make sure Oliver would be safe. I assured them he would be with me, always. Catherine refused to speak without a lawyer. Derek Morrison was arrested at his condo that evening. He tried to claim ignorance, But the text messages between him and Catherine told a different story. Plans, timelines, promises of a new life together once the problem was solved. The two men they'd hired, Patrick Chen and Robert Kowalski, sang like canaries. They'd been promised $20,000 each. Catherine had given them detailed plans of my house, including where Oliver's and my bedrooms were located. She'd told them the best entry point. She'd even disabled the security system remotely from Vancouver. She'd thought of everything, except for the fact that her 12-year-old son was braver and smarter than she gave him credit for. The trial took 8 months. Catherine's lawyer tried to argue that she'd been coerced by Derek Morrison, that she was a victim of his manipulation. The jury didn't buy it. The evidence was too clear. The text messages too damning. The fact that she'd increased the insurance policy just weeks before sealed it. Catherine was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and insurance fraud. She received 25 years with no possibility of parole for 15 years. Derek Morrison got 20 years. Patrick Chen and Robert Kowalski, in exchange for their testimony, received reduced sentences of 7 years each. I sat through every day of the trial. Oliver came to some of it. The therapist said it might help him process what had happened. He testified once, his voice small but steady, telling the jury what he'd overheard in the garage that night. When the verdict was read, Oliver squeezed my hand. "It's over, Dad," he whispered. But it wasn't. Not really. The healing process took longer than the trial. Oliver had nightmares for months, panic attacks when we smelled smoke. He couldn't sleep in his old bedroom, too many memories of lying awake, wondering if that night would be the night. We sold the house. Too many ghosts. Used the money to buy a smaller place in Oakville, closer to the lake. Fresh start. I retired from consulting work entirely and focused on being present for my son. Really present. We had breakfast together every morning. I drove him to school, picked him up, went to every hockey game, every parent-teacher conference, every school play, the things I should have been doing all along. Detective Rousseau became a friend. She checked in on us regularly, made sure we were getting the support we needed. She introduced us to other families who'd survived similar traumas. Knowing we weren't alone helped. 2 years after the trial, Oliver and I were invited to speak at a conference on family safety and domestic violence awareness. I almost said no. Dredging up the past felt unbearable. But Oliver surprised me. "I think we should do it, Dad," he said. He was 14 now, taller, his voice deeper. "Maybe our story can help someone else." So we spoke. To a room full of social workers, police officers, counselors, and concerned citizens. I told them about the signs I'd missed, the way work had consumed me, the distance I'd let grow in my marriage, the warnings from my son I'd dismissed. Oliver told them about carrying the fear alone, about not knowing if he'd be believed, about the moment his father finally listened. "Trust your children," he said to the audience. "Even when what they're saying sounds impossible, even when it's about someone you love. Sometimes kids see things adults don't want to see." The applause was long and heartfelt. Afterward, 3 people approached us separately. Each one had a child who'd tried to warn them about something. Each one had dismissed those warnings, just like I had. "Thank you," one woman said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm going to go home and really listen to my daughter tonight." That made it worth it. Now, 5 years later, Oliver is 17. He's applied to university for criminology. Wants to be a detective like Rousseau, he says. Wants to help people who can't help themselves. I couldn't be prouder. As for me, I've learned some hard lessons. I've learned that the people we trust most can harbor the darkest intentions. I've learned that professional success means nothing if you lose your family in the pursuit of it. I've learned that children often see truth more clearly than adults, unburdened by the need to believe comfortable lies. Most importantly, I've learned that paying attention, really paying attention to the people you love, is the most important job you'll ever have. If there's one thing I could say to anyone reading this, it's this. Listen to your children. When they tell you they're afraid, believe them. When they warn you about danger, investigate. Don't dismiss their concerns as childish imagination or dramatic exaggeration. They may be small, but their instincts are often sharper than ours. And if you're a parent who's buried yourself in work, who's let distance grow in your relationships, who's stopped really seeing the people in your own home, stop. Right now, put down whatever you're doing and go talk to your kids. Ask them how they're really doing. Listen to the answer. Because I almost lost everything because I was too busy to pay attention. Oliver saved both our lives by being brave enough to speak up, but I nearly missed the warning because I'd stopped really listening. Don't make my mistake. The work will always be there. The deadlines will always exist. But your children? They're only young once, and they need you to be present, attentive, and willing to believe them even when the truth is painful, especially when the truth is painful. I look at Oliver now, this young man who saved our lives at 12 years old, and I make a promise to myself every single day. I will never stop listening. I will never be too busy. I will never dismiss what he tells me, no matter how uncomfortable it makes me. Because the alternative, the one where I didn't believe him, where we went home that Saturday night, where we fell asleep in our beds, doesn't bear thinking about. Trust your instincts. Trust your children, and never assume that the people closest to you are incapable of the unthinkable. Sometimes the greatest danger wears a familiar face. Sometimes the person sharing your bed is planning your funeral. And sometimes, if you're very lucky and your child is very brave, you get a second chance to be the parent you should have been all along. I didn't waste mine.